The Los Angeles Rams are going into this season as the reigning Super Bowl champions, and they have a really good chance to repeat this season because when you compare the NFC to the AFC, it's night and day. There's pretty much 6 to 7 teams who you can make the argument for that could end up making it out of the AFC conference this year. Meanwhile, when you look at the NFC, it's a different conversation. If you were to walk up to a random NFL fan on the street and ask them, hey man, what team do you think has the best chance to make it out of the NFC? You're really probably only going to hear 3 teams. Those being the Buccaneers, the Rams, and the Green Bay Packers. And outside of those 3, you're pretty much shrugging your shoulders and you're pretty much saying, I don't know after that. And for the LA Rams, even though they did lose a couple of key pieces such as Darius Williams, Vonn Miller on the defensive side of the football, offensive tackle Andrew Whitworth finally decided to hang up the cleats. I didn't think he was ever going to retire. He's just one of those dudes who just loves the game of football. You would think that he would stay around forever, but he finally decided to retire. But Rams fans are still really optimistic about how good this offensive line is going to be this year. Even though you did lose a couple of key pieces, you still do have some guys who are going to be able to step in and produce at a pretty solid level. Now, the offensive line may not be as good as what it was last year. This was pretty much a top 10 offensive line, but the offensive line shouldn't be no worse than top 13, top 14 in the league this year. And when you look at the loss of Vonn Miller, I don't really think it was a loss at all because you got to remember, it's not like the Rams needed Vonn Miller. It kind of was just a situation where, the Denver Broncos had him on the trade block. They were looking to ship him off or something. And the Rams just said, you know what? I mean, we're already good. We don't really need him, but why not just go ahead and add another good player on the already stacked team? And that's kind of what just happened. And he played a pretty big part in them winning the Super Bowl. But don't get it twisted. Even if they didn't have Vonn Miller, they still probably would have ended up winning the Super Bowl because a lot of people make it seem like it's just Aaron Donald and then it's everybody else on the defensive line. But a lot of people forget about Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd last year had 9.5 sacks. The year before that, in 2020, he had 10 sacks. So you still have a good amount of talent on the defensive line despite the departure of Vonn Miller. You also gained Bobby Wagner, who is one of the greatest linebackers to ever play this game. So I'm really excited about what the defense is going to do this year. My best case scenario for the Rams is 14-3. They had one of the best offenses in the NFL last season, and now I think their offense potentially could get even better this year simply for the fact that you add Allen Robinson in free agency, who has a great skill set that matches up well with Matthew Stafford. We know that Matthew Stafford loves to take a lot of shots downfield. He has one of the strongest arms in the NFL. And you give him Allen Robinson, who is one of the best 50-50 ball wide receivers, who's really good at being able to get those contested catches. On top of that, he's a really good red zone target as well. You're going to be pairing him up with Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson when he gets back fully healthy, and potentially Odell Beckham. Now, I don't have any insider information on this, but I do have a intuition and a very strong gut feeling. Now, that probably may not be worth anything, but it's worth something to me. My gut tells me that Odell Beckham is going to return to the Los Angeles Rams. And when you listen to Sean McVay and people inside of the Rams organization talk about the potential of OBJ coming back to the team, it seems as if, nobody's against it. Everybody's for OBJ coming back. There's been a lot of good dialogue, a lot of great conversation. The only thing that really just comes down to is just really OBJ. They pretty much have said, in my opinion, hey, it's up to OBJ if he wants to return to us. The door is always open. So I think that we most likely are going to see OBJ return to the LA Rams. I'm not guaranteeing that. I just have a strong gut feeling. Like I said, it may not be worth anything to you, but it is worth something to me. So the defense, I'm not really worried about the pass rush or the defensive line. You definitely have some good players there. What does concern me a little bit is the secondary, okay? And that's why I'm going to go with my worst case scenario, 11-6. outside of Jalen Ramsey, there's not really a cornerback that you can look at on the Rams roster and say, oh yeah, man, I trust him. You lost Darius Williams, who isn't that big of a loss simply for the fact that his play went down last season compared to how he performed in 2020. But you do have David Long Jr., Robert Rochelle, who was a little bit hit and miss when he was in at times last year. You got Darion Kendrick, rookie cornerback out of Clemson, who I like a lot. You got Troy Hill, who returns after spending one season with the Cleveland Browns. So I don't think their secondary is terrible, but I definitely feel like, their secondary definitely is a question mark. As I mentioned earlier, at wide receiver, you do have a pretty good amount of depth there. But what about running back? Because running back is really interesting. Because when you look at Cam Akers, it kind of took him a while to heal from that Achilles injury. Now, he recovered a little bit faster than what was anticipated. However, he kind of was a little bit slow to get back to the Cam Akers that we saw the season before he suffered that injury. And I'm wondering if it was just him trying to knock off the rust that he had. And then on top of that, you do have Darrell Henderson, who was okay at certain moments. I had him on my fantasy football teams for the majority of last year. So, I mean, the run game may be a little bit of a concern when it comes to, the health and just how effective is Cam Akers going to be this year. But overall, it's really hard for me to see the Rams losing more than 6 games. I definitely think that 11-6 is the floor. However, maybe their floor could also be 12 wins. It's really just hard seeing the Rams win anything less than 11 games. And my overall record prediction for the Rams this season is 13-4. The only way I can see the Rams not winning 13 games is if Matthew Stafford gets injured, and there have been, a little bit of rumblings about his overall health. He is fighting a couple of injuries that he's currently dealing with that are nagging him. However, you look at their schedule, and yeah, their schedule is pretty tough. But overall, it doesn't really matter because you have one of the best teams in the NFL. I don't know why people use the whole tough schedule argument against great teams with proven coaches and proven talent. You feel me? And you look at the first half of their season before their bye week that they have late in October. You play in Buffalo Thursday night. That's going to be one of the biggest games of the year because that really is going to be the tell of, if Buffalo's ready. And what about the Rams? And then you got to play Atlanta, Arizona, San Francisco. Now, you're playing 2 divisional games really early into the season on the road, which helps you because when you end up playing them again later in the season, you're going to have them at home. And that's really big because the pretenders and the contenders start to separate themselves late into the year. Then you get to play Dallas, Carolina before your bye week. So I think if you're a Rams fan, you probably really only see 1, maybe 2 losses going into your bye week. And then after that, you're playing San Francisco for the second time. You got Tampa Bay on the road, which is always a really great matchup. You got Arizona, New Orleans, Kansas City. You're playing New Orleans and Kansas City both on the road back to back. Then you got Seattle, Las Vegas on the road against Green Bay, which is going to be tough. Always tough to beat Green Bay at Lambeau Field late in the season. Then you're playing the Broncos, the Chargers, and Seattle to close the season. So for the Rams, I definitely feel like this is still going to be one of the best teams in the NFL unless they have like some catastrophic injuries that hurt them really bad. But even if they do suffer some injuries, I think that their coaching is just so good that they can be able to overcome those. However, as long as Matthew Stafford stays healthy, I think that we should expect the Rams to be one of the best teams in the NFC. And personally, I think that they're going to be my pick to make it out again. I'm still trying to pick between them and Tampa Bay. But you guys let me know how you guys are feeling about the Los Angeles Rams down in the comment section down below if you're watching this on YouTube.